Welcome to the Dr. Nikki Starr Show, a podcast to support you in your spiritual awakening and personal development. As a spiritual teacher, healer, and intuitive coach, my intention is to empower you to live your ultimate potential and your ultimate life. As a former medical doctor and mystic, my role is to bridge the gap between science and spirituality to support you in understanding more of your multidimensional aspects. I share on a diverse range of topics, and it's all to support your greatest becoming. My mission is to continue reaching millions of people for the healing and awakening of humankind for the creation of the new earth. Thank you for being here. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Today, I'm here with Blake, who really focuses in on abandonment wounds and supporting people, both men and women, and helping to heal it and reclaim the abandoned parts of ourselves so we can return to our wholeness. And I discovered Blake when a friend shared one of his stories on her story, or one of his reels on her story. And I saw that he did this type of content where it was a letter to and a letter from aspects that we experience in relationship. So these type of dynamics we find ourselves in sometimes, like anxious and avoidant, and at some of the extreme, I can't remember which other ones, but it reminded me like this is so important to share and talk about. And specifically today's episode is around ending toxic cycles. So we're going to get more into that, but I want to welcome Blake. Blake, welcome. And if you'd like to introduce yourself a bit more.
Sure. Hi, Nikki. Thank you for having me, and hello, everybody watching this podcast. So yeah, like you kind of covered everything, but I really help people to process and integrate these emotional wounds, specifically the abandonment wound, right? Where they felt that these parts of them have been rejected, they're not good enough, they're not lovable, they're not chosen, and so they're stuck in these toxic cycles of repeating the same patterns of like trying to be chosen in relationships and always having the same ending. But they're stuck to the cycle of wanting it to be a happy ending this time. But they never do because they never address the actual wound itself.
Absolutely. And the truth is, I feel like every human has a fear of abandonment. So regardless on which side of the dynamic you're presenting as anxious or avoidant, or even in extreme cases with like narcissist and empath, it's like everyone really just wants to be loved. And then they find themselves in a way of relating where, because we are polarizable humans, meaning like how someone presents to us will cause us to show up in a certain way. So if someone's super anxious, we will tend to be avoidant, and then vice versa, right? And so we can sometimes find ourselves on each side of those types of ways of relating. And what you spoke about too is so important, where it's about healing a core wound. And most of the time, this comes from childhood, whether we like it or not, and whether we have like the most loving upbringing. On some levels, at some point, something happened where we felt unloved or abandoned or rejected in some way. And so this is really a topic for all of us, all of humanity.
Absolutely. And this is something which I see a lot, right? Where in general, I see on social media, like the avoidants get more hate than anxious people. It's like, oh, they're the problem. Well, both anxious and avoidant are both two wounded people. And they just have different coping mechanisms of survival, right? So if you think of it, like if we go back here, like to really understand where it came from, obviously children grow up being egocentric because the world has to evolve around us. And even people who had I had a good childhood, right? I had food, I had parents, it's the emotion that was beneath it which needs to get processed. So if you go back, like if you think of in the tribal times, if we're living in the jungle, in the forest, right? And when we express a part of us, we express an emotion, a feeling, we say something, and then that is not there. He's out in the forest hunting, and mom, she shuts down, she's emotionally unavailable. Then we make it about us, right? Like, oh, this part of me is not lovable. When I express this, and mom goes away, and dad isn't here, so therefore there's something wrong with me. It's not lovable. So as a coping mechanism, more on the anxious side, like they kind of shut that down, and they suppress it and they reject it. And that's the work of reclaiming these parts of us, because really it's a survival mechanism which had its purpose. It served in that moment, but it's now no longer healthy anymore. It's not serving you anymore. So that's the cycle which we're here to break.
Yeah, and I feel like because when it comes to these types of patterns, for example, and we talk about ending toxic cycles, what makes something toxic is because we don't thrive. It like cuts into our creation energy. It cuts into our capacity to just be in love and grateful and happy for life and all that is. So for anyone who's wondering, like, how do I know if I'm in a toxic cycle? It's like some aspect of you shrinks or feels like it's not safe to shine or be your full self, or you have to contort in some way to win love or be manipulative to get love. And then ultimately, I feel like your life is not thriving. In some way, life is not thriving, whether it's your work, mission, purpose, friends, leisure, the enjoyment and fulfillment of life is cut short because of a dynamic that you find yourself in.
Yeah, absolutely. And it all comes back to the way I see it is like living in wholeness, living in your truth. All right. So there's parts of us which are hiding in the dark, in the shadows, which don't feel good enough, which don't feel loved. And we're operating from these wounds, then we're not living in our deepest truth. Because essentially, if we're neglecting something, we're saying it's wrong. It's not good enough. And so therefore, we're not living authentically. We're not showing up in our wholeness exactly as we are as an authentic human being. And that's where the self-abandonment happens.
Yeah, and I think that some people actually don't even realize that they have a wound that needs to heal from childhood, believe it or not. And instead, what I see a lot, and even I get ads for it, probably because they talk about relationship topics too, where it's like, oh, get him hooked with your text messaging, or like these guys that say, oh, you have to insult a girl to like win her, or like don't message until 3 days later. All these games, which I
I've seen
wanted.
some of those ads.
What?
I've
You've
seen
seen.
some of those ads.
And it's like, this is going to create more toxic cycles. Don't listen to that. Please don't listen to that. Instead, the answer is do your healing work. Heal, 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 and heal some more. Return to your wholeness, reclaim your power, find that forgiveness, that self-compassion, that compassion for our caregivers. And when we come into that, like you said, that wholeness, which happens. So when I work with clients to do this work, I like to say we're retrieving a soul piece, because when a trauma happens, it's like we fragment to be able to deal with it and handle it until we're emotionally able and capable to look at it. And so when you're strong enough and you're older and you're doing your personal development work and you're resourced and you have regulating techniques, etc., you have someone holding space for you, you can go into that space and look at what was so painful that you shut away.
Mm-hmm.
I have seen, and a lot of people who are finding themselves in these toxic cycles don't even realize where it comes from. And it can come from childhood, but it can also come from patterns we've inherited. So
Totally.
I know, because I had to do healing work. When we got on this call, I was mentioning like generational traumas and generational types of relating dynamics, because when we're forming in the first 7 years of life, we get imprinted on. And if we see toxic relating, that imprints onto us as, oh, this is what love is, because I see men and women relating in this way. This is what love is. And so it's also our responsibilities as parents of the next generation to also do this healing work, to not pass these toxic cycles on to the future generations.
Absolutely. Because when you think of it, like a child is like a sponge. It's just absorbing everything that it feels and sees. And if our parents haven't processed their own wounds, it's going to keep getting passed down, right? And you know, we're not doing it just for ourselves and the future generations. We're also doing it for the ancestors before. Because when we break the cycle, we're releasing them as well from it. So it's not just for us and our future children, but it's everybody in the whole cycle, right? The whole family. And as you mentioned earlier as well, like when people only focus on the external, like all these do these texts and this and that, right? Say the right things. It doesn't matter if there's no foundation. It has to come from a place of wholeness. It's outsourcing something externally to make up for these parts which aren't good enough.
Yeah, and it's also performative. So if you show up in a way that's not your authentic self, you can only put on the act for so long. Like eventually your true
A
self is
month
going to come
ago,
out.
yeah.
And if you're not aligned or your values or your way of being is not aligned, like for me, I'm always like, show your full self, be fully honest. And if someone can't handle the truth of what you desire, what you're creating, what your values are, it's not aligned. It's not a match. Better to be upfront sooner and know than like, oh, let
Yeah,
me try to trick them or trap them or whatever. And then what you're saying about doing it for the past generations, absolutely. And as I shared before we got on the call, because you shared that you live in Colombia and I shared how my grandfather lives there. My grandparents, after so many years of being together and having challenging and maybe even some would say toxic aspects of relating, their relationship ended this past year. And this year was some of the biggest work I was doing of generational clearing. And even my grandmother went with me to the Kogis, to the indigenous, who also are specialists in relationships specifically. Like they really specialize in relationship dynamics. And it was so fascinating to see how their relationship ended. And that was like the number one thing she was complaining about at this session about my grandfather. And then within a few months later, it was like their relationship ended after all these years. And so believe that the work that we do is also healing, just like Blake said, our past generations, ourselves, and our future generations, including our children.
absolutely. And obviously, lots of people kind of see it as a burden, like, why me, poor me, you know? Well, you don't have to, right? You get to choose, right? If it's come to you, it's the way I see it as a blessing, right? And right now, there's a lot of like generational breakers happening right now in this era. Um, People like to say as well, like our parents or ancestors, they didn't have the strength or the courage to do it. They weren't equipped, right? And this goes back to our wounds as well, right? Because again, our parents could only give us what they received. And so lots of people like to hold on to resentment to their parents, like, oh, my father, my mother, you know. And they always want to try to be the opposite, to do better or to not be like them. But the more you try that, the more you are, one, going to achieve that, and two, you're going to, again, you're essentially rejecting half of yourself. If you're rejecting one of your parents, you're rejecting half of yourself. So it doesn't mean that it's not all just about forgiveness. It's about being able to see them through the eye and that they are just a soul as well. They did the best they could with what they had. Although it wasn't what you needed, that they did the best they could. And now you get to choose, right? Because only hurt people will hurt other people. So you can either now take that in and continue to pass it down to your children, or be like, hey, I felt this. I did not want anyone else to feel this pain. So therefore, I'm going to feel it and process it, and I'm ending it with me as a choice.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I know even for myself, I have felt that level of responsibility. Like there are things that I know need healing before I have children, because I know that, even as a parent, once your child is born, you still pass on certain things if you didn't clear it when they were born. You
Yeah,
know, the pattern can still continue. So
yeah,
really do it before, but of course it's better late than never. But I have felt such a responsibility to that. And this is part of the technology. I believe that relationships are a technology for our soul's evolution. So even as you're sharing about choosing something, I also want to remind everyone that you chose your parents on some level. Yes, there's a mix of like karmic repercussions in terms of who becomes your parents, but then also there's free will. So it's both that's guiding the destiny of each incarnation. So even when we think like, oh, why are my parents like this? Like you signed up for this lesson in this lifetime. And I always see that it serves. So, for example, a lot of healers have had dysfunctional relationship dynamics with parents, or parents that they have kind of had to take care of, maybe parents that suffer from some kind of mental illness, or also even from addiction or substance abuse. And it serves a function because it teaches a high level of empathy and compassion. So it was never in vain. And we can still choose to end and break toxic cycles in ways that we showed up in order to preserve and protect ourselves as children. We received gifts from that, like empathy and compassion and all the things. But then it's like, okay, now I choose to create a healthy relationship dynamic. So we have to heal the aspects that created trauma, which then are where
the toxic patterning magnetizes. That's like the thing that's like sending out the signal, like, oh, you seem like a good match. And it's because of the wound matching, right? Versus coming from the wholeness, the space of wholeness or our highest potential.
So yeah, like it's all a mirror again, right? When it comes to our parents, they pass down things to us. And I think it's important as well that I'm not a parent yet, but I want to be. And it's about giving ourselves permission that we are going to make mistakes. We are going to cause some pain on to our children. But it's about how we process our pain as much as we can before giving it to them, right? It's about being able to take responsibility and give yourself permission that you are going to make mistakes. And there's no perfect parent out there. But also whatever you pass down to them is also it's a blessing for them to work through that as well, to do their part of the work as well. And again, it's like the mirror, right? The same with relationships. You're always going to attract the opposites. The way I like to kind of describe this is, everything in the world and nature is always trying to come back to being balanced, to harmony, right? We can have a massive storm, a massive hurricane, and nature's just going to continue on. It's going to figure its way out, and it's going to continue on with life. And it's the way, same with our wounds. Our wounds are always speaking. They're always going to come to the surface, and they want to be expressed. Especially when it's the abandonment wound, right? It's just this part of us wants to be now finally seen, felt, heard, and integrated. And that's the real work as well. Like, we're going to attract these mirrors, like I said, the opposite, the avoidant and the anxious. But most people, we see the mirror and we're like, I don't like that. Break the mirror. Next person. I don't like that too. Let's break that mirror. And then we go through this cycle of like 5, 6 people, always projecting onto them without actually realizing, well, I'm actually the common denominator here. Why am I actually attracting these people? Right? And then that's the real work of looking in the mirror at yourself as to why you're chasing the love, why you want to be chosen. And that's when you can do that, that's when you can actually really start to begin your own healing journey.
Yeah, and we're touching on an aspect of self-awareness. And I know that in the bonus, you're going to guide us through a self-awareness process when we get triggered in relationship to really know where things are coming from and to be able to manage it better. But in terms of supporting all of us listening to listen, see, feel, see within ourselves of, okay, I'm committed and I wish to end toxic patterns. The first step is self-awareness. And what you can do is you can track your relationships. So look and see, okay, where was there like the same kind of thing that happened over and over and over and over and over again? Even if it was a little bit different, it elicited the same feeling within yourself. And it's like a familiar feeling of like, okay, I remember feeling this way in this kind of relationship. And then boom, you feel that way again. Right. And so by tracking patterns in relationships, we can see where there's something within ourselves that's asking to be healed. And it will usually come in the form, because what we're healing is a lot of times things connected to emotions. A lot of traumas are connected to emotions that are trapped or weren't fully felt, or we didn't understand what was happening in the moment. And so whether we had conscious awareness or not, the trauma still happened. And then we create these stories that we live in our lives. And so what can happen, what you can do is using meditation, take time to contemplate, is like find these patterns of where same script, different cast. And then from there, you can backtrack and think, okay, when was the first time I ever experienced this that I have a conscious memory of? And that's usually the point that you, at least in the work that I do with timeline healing, you will want to look there for a soul retrieval. And you don't have to heal every single moment in time. You can go back to the first time you felt it. And more often than not, people will receive even more memories of moments before or after. And it's really just so fascinating how we have all the tools to heal. It's like we're in this game of life and we're like, okay, I'm here to be my best self. I'm here to go through my soul evolution. And like everything that's painful is actually just to serve your soul's evolution. And so that's why I love it. I just think it's like a technology, really. And we're just here playing this game of our greatest becoming.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's important here as well, like, what I find important is that lots of people, like, they get stuck in the trap of awareness, right? Obviously, awareness is the most important thing because you need to know what's there in order to heal, right? But often some of these parts of us, we don't even have conscious memories of them. Some of them are subconscious and unconscious, but it's stored in the body, and it's and the emotion is there. So it's about being able to process the emotion, to feel it, to help release it, right? And where I see lots of people getting stuck as well is just talking about it for years and years and years. Going to the same therapist, talk therapy all the time, watching all the podcasts, all the videos, reading all the books. They know they can describe their traumas better than anything else, but they haven't yet felt it. That's a trap which people get stuck in. And I think it's really important as well to address that as well. Like I call that actually like it's avoidance and bypassing, right? Super important.
Yeah, especially when people have all the language around it. And so they're like, oh, I'm taking responsibility, but then there's no change in behavior because the actual healing never happened for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with what you're saying. I actually had a friend once get mad at me because she was a therapist. And I was like, I wrote a provocative post that was kind of like, fire your therapist. Like, because I agree with you. Like, just talking about it over and over is not going to heal it. It will not heal it, period, the end.
Yeah.
You might have a better way of relating to it, and you've talked yourself into all these stories of why you're good. But like you said, the body remembers everything. The body is like the video recorder and the audio recorder of every single event that's happened, even in conception and really preconception too.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah.
The way you're even brought in conception wise can absolutely affect your frequency. And so we really do need to get in there and do the healing work. And so you mentioned an aspect of feeling it. I'm big when it comes to, I really love doing spiritual healing work. Like I love working with quantum healing. I love working with somatic healing. I love working with actual physical, like different types of massage techniques. I also really love timeline healings and soul retrievals, like I mentioned. And I really love energy work so much to help people feel it because I feel like it's supportive for the process to help it clear. I'm wondering, Blake, what are some of your favorite ways that you enjoy actually healing versus talking about what created toxic patterns in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there's many tools out there, right? And I don't think there's a one fit for all, right? It's really about what works for you, what you resonate with. So I focus more on somatic work as well and breath work. Somatic work is because again it's the integration of it, right? Because if we go back to what you're talking about, the trauma, right? It's often causing a moment of overwhelm. The child's nervous system in that moment did not know what to do. They could not process or handle this emotion, this feeling. And the parents weren't there to guide them through it, or they were either absent or they didn't have the emotional awareness themselves. So that overwhelm kind of gets stuck. And they need help to process it, and it's still stuck in the body, right? And that's what's really powerful about the breath work and the somatic work is that you can actually process these emotions. And something which is really important I want to cover on too is the meaning of what happened, right? Because I see people get stuck in the story. They want to change the whole story. Like the story has happened. That has happened. And if you're trying to change it, you're also, again, in denial of avoiding what the truth is. So like this has happened and it bloody hurts, to feel that emotion, to feel how it actually made you feel. But now once you processed it, and if we talk a bit more about reparenting as well, and like nervous system regulation, you can actually choose the meaning now you give to it. Because in that moment you made it, oh, I lost my mum in the supermarket. That means I'm unlovable. She's going to disappear. I'm going to die. Right? Or when I say something, I get humiliated and bullied. So it's the meaning that you can give to it now. That's really important as well.
Yeah, I love that. I do a form of that with contract work. And so similarly, we can like update the agreements that we make with ourselves. So we're kind of saying same thing in a different way, where in moments of trauma or when anything happens, for the mind to be okay, it creates some kind of certainty. Okay, that happened, so it means this, so that you can survive in the world. But then some of these things are not serving, they create limitations. And then a lot of our essence, our light, our capacity is blocked because of whatever we made something mean. It's like we told ourselves a story that actually limited our human experience. And so part of the healing work, when we reclaim our power and we reclaim these soul pieces and we return to wholeness, we reclaim more of our power. So we get to update those agreements we made and say like, okay, that's not true. this is what I choose for my reality instead. And so I work in the Akashic Court space to support that rewriting of contracts and agreements that we've made with ourselves and also with how we relate to others. And it's so easy. It's just a matter of taking the time. And we're in this age now where it's like, yeah, it's so wonderful that there's social media. And like you mentioned, there's podcasts and books, and now there's reels and there's posts and there's all the things. And get in it. Like, roll your sleeves up and go deep into the healing work as well. That is going to bring things to a whole another level. And it's also a form of self-love. It's like an investment in yourself, but that is for your whole life and your whole way of relating. And so I can't stress that enough. And usually in a podcast or a post, you're not going to get the full transmission of what the healing would be. So I can't stress enough. Like I'm such a fan. Like I love healing work so much. I practice what I preach even for myself. I'm like, oh, I love having healing sessions. Because you feel so good after.
Yeah, and I think, as coaches and healers, I have my own coaches and healers as well, right? And I think that when it comes to this work, like we're not perfect. We're still working through things as well, right? But it's about being committed to it, all right? Because that's all it really takes is the commitment. And that's obviously what's uncomfortable and scary to people. It's a lot easier just to watch this reel and read this and, oh, yeah, I learned a bit more. But when it comes to actually, like, let's do put your sleeves up, you said, and it's going to be messy. You're going to cry. It's going to be dirty, but it's the only real way through it. And it doesn't have to be long either, People think that it can, I'm going to be, obviously healing is a lifelong journey, right? But to be able to show up in your truth, living in wholeness within your integrity, where you do what you want to do, where you're able to express your needs and then be met. It doesn't take years and years and years and years and years. You don't need to go to therapy for decades. So I think they come back to this, is like people often don't want to leave the practitioner or the healer working with because they're scared again that they're going to have their own opinion about them. But it's like, yeah, I want to honor my therapist. So I tell people, like, honor yourself. Like, if your things aren't been working for like a couple of months, there's not actually been like general progress. You're actually becoming and being someone different and remembering who you are, right? I actually like the word becoming, because it's more about remembering, right? Because whenever we want to be somebody, again, we're saying that the way I am now is not good enough. It's just remembering who you are and coming back to your wholeness. It's like, just honor yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that in terms of the word nuances. And the other piece that I feel like in terms of what you're sharing that I totally agree with is it goes so much further than the healing session, the ripple, where in the intro podcast episode to this season, I shared how when we're in a love relationship that's thriving, it not only serves that love, it serves our mission in the world, our creative capacity, how we show up to other people, our community, our family. And even in the Tao, they talk about that a peaceful world begins with the couple, because we all come through the couple. Like we're all born from a man and a woman. And so it's the healing of the man-woman relationship that's so supportive for the community, the nation, the world at large. Because think about when you're really in love, like nothing matters. Like you're not in a bad mood. Like when you're really in love, like you feel so good. And remember, that love comes from you. It's a natural caffeine. It's a natural inspirer. Think of like all art and poetry and like, so much is made from that place. Like love is such an inspiration. And so may that also be a catalyst and a reason and a why to do this work, because we know that that's one of the most beautiful feelings in the world, to be in a relationship where we're loved and we love and we're loved back the same in return. And it's beautiful and it's healthy and it's thriving and everyone benefits because of what we create from that space.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really, really beautiful. And again, it comes back to the relationship you have with yourself, right? Because you can only meet someone as deep as you met yourself, and you can only guide someone to meet themselves as deep as you met yourself. And so like I said, it starts with the love of yourself. If you're not able to see yourself and love yourself fully with your light and your darkness, all the parts, even the parts of you which you think are like horrible, until you can integrate them, then you'll never allow other people to get that close and see them within yourself as well. And that's what's really holding you back. And so then people get stuck as well of like wanting somebody to complete them. Oh, when I get the girlfriend or the boyfriend, then I'll feel loved. I'll feel good enough. No. That's coming from a place of lack. You say, I need you to reaffirm that I'm lovable. So obviously this healing is you're doing it for yourself first. And naturally, by you being in that frequency of embodying that love of yourself, naturally you're going to attract people who are going to resonate with that and can see you for who you are. You're still going to get triggered, like any relationship, but now you can actually work through it together and you're able to show up in your wholeness and authentically, and most importantly, living from your deepest truth.
Absolutely. And going back to your analogy of the mirror, which is one of the most common when we talk about relationships, when we really choose to love ourselves and do the healing work and focus on ourselves and be our best selves, then we will resonate in a person that is an energetic match to that, which is then why our relationship will be even better. So if we're not happy with the results of who we've attracted in, or the track record or the pattern, or even just the last person, do the healing work, and that's only going to elevate the person who comes in next.
Yeah, comes back to the mirror.
In relationship, it's only going to enhance the relationship. Like sometimes people think like, I'm a big fan of like, if you're in a relationship, really do your best to like work it out. And you can give it a certain amount of time and both of you going all in, doing your healing work. And then of course, at some point, if you feel it doesn't work, but even there, the other person doesn't even have to change. Because we polarize each other, if you heal something, it will shift the relationship dynamic automatically.
Yeah, it comes back to commitment. Like, I'm in this relationship right now, I'm fully committed to love this person as much as I can. And whatever comes back to me in my mirror, I'm going to take that for me and work on it. And obviously, either this relationship will work out or it doesn't. But it's still a beautiful blessing. Like all of my relationships, I'm so grateful for them, because it's mirrored back to me like, damn, like I still had that to do. Thank you for being that mirror. But at first it's like, no, you're the problem. You did change for me. Do this, And it's like, that's just the wound speaking. Like,
absolutely. Yeah. I feel like our people we find ourselves in a relationship with, first one, it's a miracle. Like of all the billions of people, like this is the person you matched with. And then secondly, it's like we bow to them because like they are our master teachers, right? And that the battlefield of love, I like to say, is really also, it's like that love is the glue that helps us to be able to work through the triggers and process. And so it can be this bittersweet situation. And it's like, thank you so much, especially when you do the healing work and then you see the gifts on the other side of like what you were able to reclaim through doing the healing work from the pain of that relationship. It's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I couldn't even access this without you.
Yeah, it's really, really beautiful here, Nikki. It's like, it's like the way I really approach life now of everything is just fully commit, like give everything, like show your naked soul, right? Because you don't know what's going to happen. Maybe it's going to not work out, maybe it will. But you might as well live that life, live that relationship, living in truth and living authentically, being your whole self. Because again, like, what's the alternative? If you're playing it safe, that's good. That's the recipe for disaster, right? So things are going to happen, come what may. So you might as well live it, put yourself out there, and if you get hurt, you're going to get hurt anyway, come what may. So like, why not live it and learn from it, and just like see it as more of like a devotion to the journey of love for yourself and other people. And
I totally agree with you. Yeah,
you might as well like, go all in.
Even for the avoidant person, right? To the avoidant person, go all in, because like Blake said, you're going to get hurt anyway. And if you're trying to be careful, like, and then to the anxious person, it's like, what would you say to them?
Well, so for the avoidant person, I'd say that, so when you think of it like the avoidant person, that for them, feeling feels like death, right? Feeling was never safe. They never had the guidance or the support to feel something. So feeling something is like massive overwhelm. So that's why when they get overwhelmed, they go behind a wall, they disappear. That's the only way they've learned to regulate the nervous system, is to remove themselves from the situation and not process and work through it. So for them, I would say that an avoidant person is the only person who can come outside from behind the wall. No matter what an anxious person does or tries to do, it's not going to help. But they have to want to be willing to come forward and to be vulnerable. Hey, I'm feeling this way right now. I'm feeling scared. I feel overwhelmed. This is where I'm at. Not needing them to fix it, just owning it, right? And obviously they can work with other people, coaches, therapists, healers, whatever, or communities. Lots of men have men's communities, is really powerful as well. And so they have to come forward, right? To be willing to look in the mirror and to have the support to feel what they haven't been felt or hasn't felt safe to feel. And for the anxious person, I would say that because they're coming from the place that they need the reassurance of that they're lovable, they're good enough, that everything's okay, right? And so they need to be able to go within themselves to feel safe within themselves, of one, just to soothe themselves in these moments of anxiousness when love is going away, and then do the work so that they can whatever happens on this outcome, it's okay, I've got you, little boy, little girl. Like, whatever happens, you're not getting abandoned by them, I'm here, I've got you. They come back to rooted in their own safety, in their own system, and their own body. Because when both people can do that, when they're no longer needing them to fix them, and the avoidant person can come out and express, they can meet each other halfway. But they have to both be willing to do the work and to meet each other halfway.
Yeah, absolutely. And so as we close this episode, the last kind of question and prompt, I would say, if someone really wanted to end a toxic cycle, I would say to do your healing work, and most specifically your your inner child healing work, and really look at your generational patterns. Look at the relationships of your parents and your grandparents and all that was around imprinting love to you, and become sovereign in the sense of you can choose to not inherit things that you've inherited. You can do the healing work for that and say, okay, this was yours to heal. This was not mine. And really returning to, like was saying, remember who you are. I say it's like returning to your divine essence, your original blueprint, so that you're free of these patterns and programs. So really do the work to become sovereign and in your divine essence, so that you can attract in the type of love that you are here to receive and give. And what would you say, Blake, if you were going to really give the advice to someone, okay, it's time to end toxic cycles and they know they need to end it? What would you give as your main advice to them?
Well, first and foremost, it comes down to acceptance of this is where I'm at right now. I'm taking radical accountability and responsibility of whatever anybody else has done to you in the past. Yeah, that sucked, but this is where I'm at. So it starts with the accountability of I'm the only person who can work through this. And then when it comes to the healing journey itself, I would say that, again, it comes back to the ownership of okay, these are the parts of me which, this is how I respond, this is how I react, this is how I get triggered. And to see that again as your compass. Right? All these wounds, all these cycles, relationships you've been in, it's a compass. It's guiding you back to that. So again, it's coming back to remembrance of who you were. Because when you think of it, every child was born pure innocent. Obviously, we then absorb things from our parents. Obviously, things happened before as well. But for the most part, you're innocent. You're born in this world, what has happened? So it's about finding ways to come back to remembering who you were before you had to become somebody else in order to survive, right? To reconnect with that inner child version of you, that authentic side of yourself. And so for that, what I love to do is I live out here in the mountains in Colombia, and I'm out all the time, chopping things down, having fun, just creating, playing. So really being able to come back to that playful, creative essence. Because that's, children are the masters of creation. When you think about it, we're just drawing, we imagine things, come back to that. And that's also going to be a mirror of how your purpose, your life, your mission, your relationships, it all come back from that place of creativity. But it has to feel safe. It's about coming back to a place of safety within your own self. And then from there, abundance and magical things will happen. But you've got to come back to your safety within yourself first.
Absolutely, which is ultimate self-love, really.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So thank you, Blake. We have more inside the bonus content. Blake is going to guide us through a process to support us when we get triggered in emotions, in relationships, so we don't step into those toxic cycles again. And before we go, though, do you want to share where people can find you, what you're working on now, etc.? And we'll include all of your information as well in the comment section.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I really love this conversation.
Yeah,
And
me too.
people can mainly find me on Instagram at blake.coach. And I also have my website is called awakenfully.com. Right now, I'm not taking any more clients because I'm fully booked right now, but I'm have a wait list for people to join in around the month of August. But people can find me on Instagram. They can message me there. I reply to pretty much all of my messages, even though there's a lot of them, but I do my best to reply to every single one of them. And that's where you can find me and my content. And if something resonates, you send me a message, and we can go from there and see what we can do together.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Blake, for being here. And thank you all for tuning in. We will see you next time in Inside the Bonus content. Bye for now.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Dr. Nikki Starr Show. Please like this podcast and share it with anyone you feel would benefit. Subscribe to the podcast to receive bonus content, and remember, every Monday the video version goes live on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for being on the Ascension path with me and for doing this great work.